Hi everyone, this is Sherrie Rice-Smith of EFT for Christians.com. Today I want to talk about neuroplasticity a little bit. For those of you who are interested in how the physiology works, I want to get into a little bit of how God created us. I think this is the amazing part of, and it's the exciting part of all this neuroscience that's now being researched and figured out. And it also kind of all goes together as to often why the tapping works. So back in the 16th century, Galileo, the guy who discovered the planets with his telescope, he realized that, or he thought that the planets were just inanimate bodies and they were just out there moving around randomly. But as they studied them more and more, they realized it was more of a mechanical forces holding them all together, and that whole body of thought in that era was that everything was a large cosmic clock, and it was subject to specific laws rather than how the Greeks had seen it for over a millennia, that it was a metaphysical living organism where the soul and body were all intertwined. We switched, Western thought switched that into a more mechanistic process. Even Michelangelo, and he was earlier than Galileo, had drawn the heart in amazing detail, and he basically explained it as a pump. And if I have read correctly, he actually put grass seeds in water and had it forced through, his pump to show the vortexes, etc., that happen as the blood flows through all of those valves from the different oracles of the heart. It was kind of an interesting pictures that I did see. A couple of decades later, then William Harvey went in to figure out how blood circulated, and of course that made everything sound more mechanistic. Again, he just thought the heart was a simple pump. It was doing what it is. And then a few decades later, we get to René Descartes. He was a French philosopher, and he just thought that the brain and the nervous system was also a pump, but that there was fluid flowing back and forth. So anytime someone touched, part of the skin or whatever, it sent a shoot of blood flying up to the brain, and then it swished around and then it sent the sensation back. And in reality, he wasn't terribly far off, except it was electrical currents and it's not really fluid. So again, all of this their new science just seemed to show that the brain was a computer. Each part had a simple function, and once it was damaged, it was shot. It's kind of like when you wear out your tires, you throw them out and you get a new set of tires, except the brain didn't get a new set of tires. Once it was ruined, it was ruined. There was nothing that could be do about it. A little bit later, then they got into thinking that for the sensory, thought receptors just sent some signal to the brain, and that each receptor did one and only thing. It continued to evolve, and other people thought up various ideas into the 17th and 18th century, and most of them just shut up because people laughed at them, that the brain could adapt to any kind of ideas, that it could get a new picture, and that it could actually change and grow, and no one wanted to listen to any of that because they were really stuck in that Newtonian Descartes system of mechanistic, and it was a lot of physics, how things actually worked, but no one understood that there were a lot of quantum processes going underneath. Anyway, so in 1861, Paul Broca discovered that there actually was a speech center. It's in the left frontal cortex, or the lobe, and he just thought, though, it made the lips and the tongue move, and that was all that that was going on. A lot of times that's the part of the brain that's affected when people have strokes, and therefore that's what causes their inability to speak. Then there was another gentleman who took that a little bit further, and then we got into the late 19th century, and they began to realize that the brain was polysensory, and that a lot of different areas did different things, and that it could actually cross over. And if one part was damaged, another part would take over and could actually, fill in for it. Scientists realized that with some little bit of research on animals, that they actually wired the visual nerve to the auditory nerve, and the mice or whatever they were, rabbit or whatever they were working on, could still see. Your visual cortex is in your occipital lobe, which is in the back. Your auditory cortex is here in your region, or your temporal lobe. That's why at night when you close your eyes, your visual cortex is shut off. That's all kinds of retinal nerves that go back and it processes what you see. When it's your eyes are closed at night, you have no visual input. So what's going on there is that you process a lot of what you've taken in through that sleeping, dreaming stage. Kids have a greater capacity for neuroplasticity because they actually have 50% more neurons than adults. In adolescence, those start to get culled out, and it literally is, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And anything that the mind feels is not useful anymore, it calls it out, starts to trim back all of those, prunes out those extra neurons until they get their full adult brain at about age 25. So basically, it's amazing now that we realize that the cerebral cortex actually learns how to learn. It's an organism with an appetite to change and to grow. It really wants to grow. The more that we do, the more that we use, the more that we expand it. And it's kind of interesting because it's very similar to what our God does. I mean, He has a plan for everything. Everything, no matter what we think has gone wrong. Romans 8:28 tells us that, it all works out in the end. And that's what God has done with our body. He makes one part of it cover for another part of it. And that's also why I think that we see in EFT why stuck people, people come in and say, I'm stuck. I just can't go where I want to go. I can't move on in life. And I think part of that is that their brain neuroplasticity is just stuck. And a lot of the times, I believe it gets stuck just simply due to negative emotions, of overwhelm or anger or bitterness or rage. And as we move those out, they get unstuck. And then the brain can once again change, move on, begin to do what God had planned for that person to do since the beginning of time. So I encourage you to keep tapping, keep working, and God bless you. This is EFTforChristians.com. Remember that EFT and is not a substitute for any medical advice, so please consult your own physician. Come visit me at EFTforChristians.com and email me as you need. All right, take care. God bless. Have a great day.